Hello and welcome to the BYU Library Family History webinar. We're glad you could join us today. I'm Olivia Tuller and I'll be your host for this webinar. If you have technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box and I can address your concerns. You're welcome to use the chat box during the webinar for comments, insights, and questions. And as I remember, I think Marilyn is okay with questions during the webinar, and then I can tell them to her during. Our next webinar is on September 5th with Michael Strauss, and his presentation will be on the Great War, World War I research. If you would like to access a previous webinar, please visit our webinar index on our website or search on our YouTube channel. All of our webinars are recorded and uploaded by the following Monday for your convenience. We also post links to our recordings and other updates on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. For today's webinar, we are pleased to hear from Marilyn Thomsen on state military record resources. Before we begin, here's a little bit about Marilyn. Marilyn Thomsen, the editor of Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group newsletter, loves helping friends and family with their research. She graduated with a BA in Family History from Brigham Young University and completed her internship at the National Archive Branch in Atlanta, Georgia. Twice, she won BYU's award for her family histories. She volunteered at the FamilySearch Library in Salt Lake City and has been director at 3 FamilySearch centers in Utah. She completed training courses and served on the Lineage Research Committee for the Utah DAR. Her husband Richard shares with her a passion for digging up dead relatives and connecting them to living relatives. And we'll now turn the time over to Marilyn to share her screen and do her presentation.
Okay. All right. I think we're set. Woohoo! Well, I am excited to be here. I really love military records ever since I did my internship in the archive. And so today I want to share some of my expertise with you about what I have learned while doing military records. So some of our objectives today is to try to explain why you need to go to state records. So often, if you've learned to do research online, you say, oh, I've checked out Ancestor, I've checked out FamilySearch, and we don't understand how powerful the state archives and the state records are. It's similar to people that learn to research in the family history library, don't understand about going to court records. And so you need to broaden your scope of all of the places that you need to go. And so today we'll talk about why go to state records. We'll talk about the state archives. We'll talk about the websites to bookmark. And we'll talk a little bit about service by time period and conflict. And I'll give you some examples of some of the state records that you can find. Olivia has a handout that she's going to share in the chat. And so I'm hoping that you'll be able to download a copy. If you don't see the links that I'm talking about, the sites I'm talking about, and that, just ask me, but they should be in there. Okay. So to start out, why we do go to the state archives is I want to tell you the story about Hezekiah Hunt. And I also want to mention I did a prior presentation for BYU, and I talked a little bit more about this and that, and there are more links and websites in that handout. But anyway, I had wanted to research Hezekiah Hunt, and I'd gone to FamilySearch, and I've been in the library, spent months and weeks at the library, couldn't find anything about him. But my family, they had this picture of him in his uniform. We had a cemetery headstone. We had all of these indications he'd served in the Confederate the Confederate Army, but I couldn't find any records. And so then when I went to do my internship at the National Archive, I did the same thing. I hunted all the military records, couldn't find Hezekiah Hunt. And so then I walked across the parking lot over to the Georgia State Archive in Moreau, Georgia. And I says, do you have anything on Hezekiah Hunt? And they said, oh, yeah, is his wife's name Dovey? And I said, yeah. And they said, oh, yeah, we have Dovey's pension. We have him in the state military record. We have him, and they started rolling out all of these records. But the reason is that he was in what would be called like our National Guard. He was there in the Guard. He was not in the national, even it's the Confederacy national or the federal records. And that's where I had been lurking. And so it's really, really important for you to learn to use these state archives for the military records, for their databases, for their indexes to help you in this search. So I'm going to start out as one of the first resources I love to use with military records or any research, and that is the FamilySearch Wiki. And if you go into US records, military records, they list, there's one page that lists them all by war. And so we're going to start out by clicking on the colonial wars at the top, and you'll be able to see, whoops, okay, just a minute. Does this page show up, Olivia? It doesn't. Okay, we will minimize that. That opened up, it didn't progress. It just opened up the web page because it's a hot link.
Yeah, we're still seeing just your presentation.
Okay, yeah, let's do this. Okay, so this is what you'll see on FamilySearch. Thanks, Olivia. So first of all, it'll list all of the states that were involved in the colonial wars. And so directing you to their military records. So can you see how these records are organized by the states? And is what would happen is that in the little hometowns, the military would be in part of the militia. And so there's the militia rolls and the muster rolls, and those will be by the state. And it will name the people. And so everybody that was physically of age and able will be in these roles. In fact, this is one of the ways that you date people is when they show up in the roles, you go, oh, look, they're 21 years old. They showed up in the militia rolls. And so then you can start dating the children within, or the sons, I should say, in the family as they show up in these roles. Okay. And so then also these military records, they would pay them in the state. So it's not in the national records or that, it'll be by state. So this is where you want to go, is to the state records. And that's really true also for the Revolutionary War. And with the Revolutionary War, you need to remember about a third of the people were not US citizens, loyal to the US, they were loyalist. And so you need to also go to the British and the Canadian records, okay? And that again is very specific, all right? So anyway, we'll go to the next one. This is when I clicked on, let's see, this is the Colonial Wars. Can you see how it shows here the forts that were connected? And then it says Connecticut State selected papers, and those may be at FamilySearch on film, microfilm, or often now it's getting so if you go to Connecticut, they will have put these all online, as well as sometimes the films aren't available at the FamilySearch library because let's say Connecticut says, oh no, we want you to access them on our website, okay? They'll also have other links, and this is one thing I do love about the FamilySearch library is they will start linking you to other places that do have these records, such as the Allen County Public Library has the Journal of Connecticut Service, and they also link to Google Books that lists women who are members of, this is the Society of the Dames of America, which again, this will be local units, local groups, lineage societies that you'll want to go to, okay? So then we'll go to the War of 1812, okay? And so I'm gonna click and it'll go to what's available at FamilySearch, all right? And so it shows you that the service records are not online. They have to be gotten from the National Archives. However, for Mississippi, and Mississippi's are available online. So again, you're having to look at the state for these records. Another really important thing about the War in 1812 is that the pensions have been microfilmed, and it kind of stopped for a while through COVID, and now they're almost all 88%, maybe 90% are available at Fold 3 for free. Okay. And so FamilySearch on their website does have a link to the site that will show you in a few minutes that does have access to those. So the next one we want to look at is the Civil War records. Okay, and this is what FamilySearch will have. It will show you how the Civil War is really a war by state. So for example, West Virginia was created because of the war. Their very first records really for West Virginia are from the separation from Virginia. And so every state is unique in their records. You need to learn what's unique about your state as you are looking for the records, because the records will be different for every state. Now, I'm just going to take you for an example to Texas. Okay. So in Texas, they had a Confederate pension index that's at the Texas State Library and Archive. Okay. They have Confederate prisoner of war that's on Find My Past. And Texas was really unique because they gave pension to both the Union and the Confederate. Anybody that came, they wanted to give land to, because they wanted everybody to settle Texas, come to Texas. In fact, after the Civil War, there was a huge migration to Texas because of the land that was so available to people if you had served in the war. And so it caused a real influx of people. And if that's the period of time and the 1870s that your family arrived in Texas, start looking for both a bounty land and also for a pension. And then they also had some state troopers. So again, that idea of the National Guards. And these state troopers are in several different ways. Those are records that you need to look at locally. Okay, so that's just a good example. Also, another thing that is local is the 1890 census, the veteran schedule. So you all remember, or if you've done any research, you understand that in 1890 there was a fire in the National Archive and with a census that was storing the 1890 census. And so they came in and they hosed down the books, and then immediately they started molding and rotting. And so Congress said, well, just burn them. We can't have mold and fungus and that. And so they burned the 1890 census. However, there's a veteran schedules that survived. And sometimes it was because the states had kept a copy, and so that's a special one, but not every state veteran schedule survives. So you have to look at which state they would have been in 1890. And this schedule is amazing. They asked particulars to these veterans about their family and where they were and their life, and it's really very worthwhile looking at. Another thing that is local by state is the Grand Army of the Republic, the GAR. Is what happens is there were veterans that organized. It's the largest veterans organization in our country, and it occurred right after the Civil War. And it's mostly Union. Sometimes the Confederates will say, well, I was always really loyal to the US, and that they will join too. But In the Confederacy, they have the Sons of the Confederacy, but it's never quite as large or as well organized. And this Grand Army of the Republic has a list of the membership for 490,000 members and the posts and where they are. And sometimes this is really helpful for locating your people. These local posts might post a biography of your person. They may have little memoirs about them. Anyway, it's worthwhile taking a look and to see if your person is there. And those again will be organized by state. Okay, I mentioned this before. Okay. This is a link that is in the handout to online military indexes and records for the US. It's a website. And in FamilySearch, on almost every state page or national page, they will list this site as an important site to look at. And they have organized links via the wars. And as you can see, he says, it's the person who does this. His name is Joe Benini, an amazing individual, and he updates it regularly. In fact, this one is probably, I like this one because sometimes links go dead in FamilySearch or Cyndi's list, but this one, his are pretty accurate. And if they aren't, just let him know and he'll update it. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the page on the War of 1812. And the reason I picked this is because I didn't find this link in FamilySearch, but I did find it here. And remember those pensions that the wives and the soldiers received? These are on fold 3 and they are free. The problem with fold 3 is it's difficult to get into the database. You'll put in War of 1812 pension applications, and they'll go to index, and they'll go to indexes of who was in the war and service records, but they never, yes. Anyway, this link takes you right in, and it's free, and you don't have to get any complicated, but use it. And these pensions are just incredible. Don't just look for the pension of your ancestor. Look for his brothers, look for his sisters, look for sister-in-laws, look for the women in these pensions. Use all of the names you can think of, and sometimes even dependents would get pensions. And these pensions may have in it Bible records, marriage records, death dates. It'll have a chronology of where they lived and where they moved to. Just wonderful, wonderful information that you probably may not get in anywhere else. They'll also perhaps mention if they got bounty land and if they claimed the bounty land. All right. So this is, again, the online indexes. If you were on that first page, let's say the War of 1812, then if you scroll down, then this index also lists different databases by state. And this is an example of how Delaware, Illinois, Louisiana, Missouri, North Carolina pay vouchers, Ohio. And so I like to go in here and go through these because it's linking right to the different state. I go down to my state that I'm looking at and click on what they have for that state. Okay, so now I would like to take you into state archives. If you are not accustomed to using state libraries, state archives, or even I like little county libraries, well, they are so helpful. They will look things up for me and get back to me, and I have wonderful stories of them saying, oh yeah, we have a file on that family that has a Bible record in it and a pedigree and everybody's information. I mean, that's the kind of just amazing information that may be in a state archive that you may not find elsewhere. So in the handout, I have a link to this Family History Daily that does have links to every state's archives, and that is helpful, okay? So we're just going to look at a few of the library or archives in that. So one of the most outstanding is the Library of Virginia. Virginia has put aside a lot of money to digitize their collections. And their site is easy to use. It is has searches, name indexes, and that also the librarians, if you want a copy of something, they are just really responsive and really helpful. So if you're in Virginia, make sure you check that out. This is North Carolina Archive, is really a top-notch archive. This is one of their collections. It's the troop returns and the names of the troops. Another one is the War of 1812 pay vouchers. So let me explain, when the soldiers would get paid, there would be a muster. And if they were sick, it would say sick. And that's when they would get their pay. And they'd say, oh, absent without leave, or, and so you can follow through the service records when they mustered. But these are also the pay vouchers. And these pay vouchers tell you how much they were paid. And then when they claimed it, you can see where they claimed it. And it's used, the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, use these to prove service, but it also helps you to separate out individuals with similar names. If you have two people in the same county, and that it just helps you to keep people separate. Okay, this is an example of a pay voucher again. Can you see they've punched these holes? These holes actually are about the size of a silver dollar. And of course, it's right over where you need to read. But it tells you, where they claimed their pay voucher and collected their pay. And so this one, for example, was for my ancestor, Philip Huckabee, and it put him where he needed to be able to claim him. Another state library is for Pennsylvania. Their archive has digitized a lot of collection and created a databases, okay? This one is a list of all of the military, and you can put in the names, you can scroll down, it'll tell you what they have. It's a big index that they have in their library. Another archive, you all know the Allen County Public Library, which has, along with FamilySearch, they've digitized their books, and they have a wonderful collection. But they have put a lot of the War of 1812 pensioners into a database by different states. And so even though this is Illinois, I think it is, there will be links to this site to be able to look up what they have. This is Indiana University, and they have paymaster and roll receipts for 1812. There you go. This is Florida. Florida has a great archive, and they have put they have quite a few different military collections. This is a fun one that they had that was an old Confederates soldiers and sailors home, and I think they love to retire down to Florida. And so that's the type of information you would find in these state archives. Okay, This one is Arkansas. This is Confederate Veterans Records. And you can see there's quite a few databases that are underneath that. This is Alabama's Department Archives. I love Alabama Library. And then they also have their archives. They have done a huge collections of photos online. They have Ancestry.com has taken their library and has put it into their database, and it will pop up. But it's worthwhile to go in and see the other collections that they have. These pictures and photograph collection, they may name people, especially if you're a soldier in the Civil War, was an officer, it may be there. But one of the valuable things is that they will have pictures of hospitals, prisoner of war camps, different groups that you can say put in the unit, and they may have pictures of the unit. And so that's worth checking out. Here's Missouri State Archives. These are soldiers' records of the War of 1812 through World War I. And so it's an all-name database that you can put in the person's name, and they will bring up records. Okay. This is the Georgia Archives, which of course is one of my absolute favorites. They were early in digitizing their collections, and they have a huge collections of photos and original documents and pensions, and I just love them. But I just wanted to take a minute and show you how the difference between, say, going to FamilySearch and then going to the archive. So this is Georgia military records, and if the state records may not have been sent to national, and the county records may or may not be turned to the state. So they have a Georgia Confederate pension rolls, and so you put in the name, and up comes this little copy that has come out of a book. And it gives you the name, the widow of George Fallon, and it gives his unit number and it says there's a pension application. But then that's it. And so you need to go to the state archive, okay? And this is what you'll see. This is the first page of the pension. And as you go through, you'll see that she remarried twice and has 2 other pension applications under different names as her husbands died. And that's the kind of information that won't be in that book index, but will be because you've gone to the originals in the state archives. There is a source that is volunteers that kind of disappeared and it's not growing, but it is worthwhile visiting, and that is the USGenWeb archives. And it's what this is local genealogists at the beginning of the internet would get together and try to digitize their local records. Okay. And so you can see how it has file managers, volunteers needed, and then it will have each of the states. But one of the main areas that they had was military records. Okay. And this slide is out of order. Sorry about that. Okay. So these are some links from GenWebs. Okay. And so these are from the different wars, the colonial wars, okay, Revolutionary Wars. This is another example of what they have. They have, let's see, I'm trying to remember, this one is for, I believe, Georgia. And so they have pension applications, but they have letters, and they have different little things in there. I'll tell you one thing that I found in there was a history of the military unit that my grandfather had served in. And it was a day-by-day journal that the captain had written, and talked about how miserable it was. It rained and everybody got foot fungus, and even the horses had foot fungus, and the food was so terrible. And boy, by the time I read that, I thought, no, military life isn't very romantic at all. But that's the kind of things that you will find on the GenWeb links. This one is another thing that's on GenWeb. This is, so you can see it says Georgia Military Company H 49th Regiment. It lists everyone that was in there, but not just lists their names, it also tells what happened to them. It may tell who they married, it may tell, so for example, I've blown this up a little bit. This is George Ruffington. He enlisted, he was a lieutenant, he was a captain, he's wounded at Manassas, 2nd Manassas. Then it goes on and gives, he was born in Georgia and he married Elizabeth, and they had personal family letters and things like that that they used to compile this information. So it kind of gives you a place to go. So the next favorite site I have to get into the local records is Cyndi's List. Cyndi started out from her home compiling links for other genealogists. And she started to create this website and has grown and grown and has had helpers and contributors. And so as she and her helpers have searched the web, they love to categorize things that they find so that others can find them. And I find often Google search just doesn't find the stuff that Cyndi's List does. And so I wanted to show you some of the military records that she has. So first of all, up at the top, there's a little search bar, and you would put in US military or United States military. And then she has all of these categories, and there will be categories up there that you may not even think of that she has. Okay, medals, awards, and these are some of them that she has. I like to put in a state. Okay, so for example, this is Michigan. And so these is the 13,000 historical newspapers, including speeches and opinion pieces. Okay, publications, books, and then cemeteries and funerals. And so these are the quartermaster. It's a searchable database. And I would never, ever have thought of that as a military record, but there it is, in Michigan. Okay. This is when I clicked on the cemetery record, one of the things that brought up was burial sites for the 4th Michigan Volunteer Infantry. And as I went through, they had photos of every single one of those soldiers that were in the 4th Michigan, the group. And that wasn't just a Civil War, it was on through the 1900s. These are some of the categories in Cyndi's List: finding old comrades, historical military conflicts, and that can be so helpful to find what happened locally to your family, what war was fought in their ground. So regimental rosters, societies, and that. So these are some of the links. Okay. Oh, this one is the headstones in the cemetery links. This is supposed to be under cemeteries. I'm sorry. You'll find in the cemeteries, you'll find clues about the Purple Hearts. You'll find insignias and that in the cemeteries. Okay. So some of the symbols on military graves aren't related to ranks or achievements or units, but they're just the sacrifice. And so a gold star on a cemetery represents a family loss. So this is kind of fun. Okay, this is, okay, let me, okay, this was supposed to be where we were. If you go to FamilySearch, they talk about the cemeteries, local and national. Okay, so in my other presentation or handout, I mentioned how there is now a national database for military cemeteries and headstones. However, all of you know that each of your local cemeteries will go out and put those flags on the military, say for Veterans Day and that. But it's good to know what cemeteries there are close by to where your individual died. And so FamilySearch has this webpage that's cemetery addresses. And let's try it. We click on Minnesota. And so when you go to their cemetery, their database, they have listed the military cemeteries that are in Minnesota. Okay. Minnesota has a Veterans Grave Index. Okay. They have a cemetery in Little Falls. Okay. They have Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery in Duluth. Okay, they have a Minnesota Veterans Grave Registration Reports at FamilySearch, and Fort Schnelling Cemetery at Find a Grave. So this is really helpful to have this type of database. I want to also mention when we're going local, sometimes we are just looking for war records, but the National Guard is there all the time. And this is an example of a database of the Iron Division for Pennsylvania during the World War, the Great Grand War, the First World War. But you need to also look at the National Guard in your state, okay, when you're looking for state records. And so I'm using Pennsylvania as an example. So they have the National Guard, they have examples. So I have finished up with my PowerPoint. Wow, I went through that so quick. Are there any questions?
It doesn't look like we have any questions yet, but
Okay,
minutes to see if they have any.
okay. If we had time, how you try and do, let me just go online to FamilySearch really quick, okay? Share the screen, okay? This is the Colonial Wars, remember, and this is how it works, how you scroll down and they show you the states that were involved in the Colonial Wars, okay? But then I also love that they mentioned Canadian provinces were also involved in those Colonial Wars, okay? And so it's important for you to really go local for the wars. Are there any of the participants who would like to take a look at a state? Let's
I think
see.
Lance first does have a question and he's unmuted if you'd like to ask it right now.
Okay, Lance.
Oh, maybe it was an accident.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's okay.
Okay.
We do have one question in the Q&A from Peter. He says, could I use this research type for Swedish and Polish military research?
Oh, yes, Peter, we talked last time. It was Danish. The Swedish, I went online to FamilySearch and used the Wiki, to but we didn't do Polish research, did we? So if we go to FamilySearch to the Wiki homepage, okay. Okay, so you'll click on here and then you'll go down to the research wiki. Maybe we'll go to the research wiki. And then you're going to look by place or topic. And so if you do Polish, or let's try Poland military records. Okay, and so when you go into each country over here on the right-hand side, they'll have different record types. And always for every country will be listed military records, along with land and property and immigration and that. And so I love FamilySearch because they want to educate you about what they have, along with having links to databases, okay? And so for example, here it says, useful when there are gaps in church and other registers. The Polish church records will be your very first point of contact, okay? You'll want to make sure that you've done your church record search and that. And then after that, then you can go into the military records. It says the value of these records is severely limited, however, and they're not organized in a user-friendly way. But this problem can be overcome if indexes are available. So again, you would need to go locally. So there may be an index for a local, I guess, what's it, like a state. And then it says these are the types of records in Poland: military service records, so muster rolls, conscription lists, draft registers. And after the partitions, each area of Poland had its own distinctive system of keeping military records. Okay. All right, there we go. Sweden, their records are probably, let's go. Sweden, oh, you need a W. Sweden military records. Okay. All right. So the military records after 1885 changed. And so it gives you a history of what is available. There's a war archive. And then these are Army pension records that are available at FamilySearch. The ruler. So these would registers of servicemen at the soldiers' home. Okay. I know in Denmark, after Napoleon, the Napoleonic Wars, then they registered every male at the moment they were born, and they tracked them to see who they had that would be available to call up for war. And the Danish military records are just incredibly valuable and really helpful. So military archives. So here's a military timeline, military word list. These are just so very, very helpful. Oh yes, you have to remember that Sweden was part of Denmark for a while. So you'll get to know Danish record search. Oh, look here, the first Polish War. Okay, there we go. So it looks like we're probably, Olivia, have probably finished up, unless there's any more questions. Oh, hello from Harrison, Michigan. Hey, that's wonderful, Michigan. And that, glad to see you. Oh, Allison, thank you for coming, and I appreciate you listening to this. Okay. Let's see, should we go into Michigan? Okay, let's see, let's look up Michigan military records. Are you from Michigan? Are your family from Michigan? Okay, so if you go into Michigan, then here is the general one, and you'll go over to the right and it'll say military records. When you click on the military records, then it lists the wars. And so you'll want to go into the specific war that you're looking for. We talked in my prior one about how to look at the ages for your family members to look at. Okay, so here they have specific Michigan military records, a link, and then the general information. Here's the list of the forts that they had. And then as you go on down, then they'll have militia military members serving in the War of 1812. Okay. And each war, the Toronto War was very unique and very important if you're researching in Michigan. And so Michigan Civil War books, okay. There's the soldier and sailors who served in the Michigan War by the Michigan Department of State. Michigan soldiers who served in the Civil War. That looks like a book. Okay, and then you see here again, here's the GAR. So they will have local units that you would be able to go in and contact them to see if they might have a biography or something like that. And then as you go down the wars, I haven't touched very much on the world wars, but those are valuable records. And you have to remember, some people served at home. Everybody didn't go overseas. So here's World War II casualties, prisoners of the Japanese. And then here is the Michigan National Guard. A general roster for, this is the pre-Civil War. Anti-Civil War is what they call it. And then it goes on down the National Guard, a link to the National Guard. Okay, so, all right, Olivia.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for looking at those records for Allison.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. We hope you will join us for our next on September 5th with Michael Strauss. He will be giving a presentation on the Great War, World War I research. And if you have any questions or comments, you can always email us at fh_webinars@byu.edu. Thank you and have a wonderful week.